Hi, I'm Adam Brickley. I'm the founder and blogger here at Draft Sarah Palin for Vice President. If you're watching this on another site, you can find us at www.palinforvp.net. I'm here to comment tonight on what I think is one of the biggest victories we've had for our movement, and that's Governor Palin's strong showing in the Congressional Quarterly VP Madness bracket. If you're not familiar with the bracket, it was one of the bigger vice presidential polls online. It was a March Madness style bracket with 32 potential Republican vice presidential candidates, and Governor Palin advanced all the way to the final matchup against Mike Huckabee. This is a major victory for our movement, as it puts Governor Palin ahead of a number of other well-qualified candidates, including Mitt Romney, Bobby Jindal, Rob Portman, Charlie Crist, Condi Rice, etc. And it should show Senator McCain that Governor Palin is the type of dynamic, principled leader who can attract more votes to his campaign than any other candidate for vice president. But the real big thing I wanted to address was the final result, which was a 72 to 28% victory for Mike Huckabee, or at least so it seems. I don't think that that's an accurate result, and here's why. CQ Politics, in its final analysis article, identified two movements that were trying to win this poll for a specific candidate. Now, one was ours, and I'll admit that we did mount such a movement. But here's the thing. Our current mailing list could probably only muster a couple hundred votes, and that's if everybody got all of their friends to vote. It's likely less than 5% and not enough to affect any of the results in any of the rounds. The other one identified was one called Huck's Army. You can find them at www.hucksarmy.com. This is a grassroots organization that dates back to the presidential primaries and is designed to promote Governor Mike Huckabee, and it has over 18,000 members. In their forums, they've been actively keeping track of every known VP poll on the net and are consistently producing unnatural victories for Mike Huckabee. I would cite a recent U.S. News vice presidential poll in which Governor Huckabee took 73% of the vote, despite the fact that there were 15 candidates. That's not natural. So essentially what I'm saying is that Palin made the finals because of people voting on their conscience, whereas Mike Huckabee made the finals because of the efforts of a very well-organized minority to hijack the poll. And in fact, in the finals, if you watch the voting trends, at one point Palin had an early lead, and if you watch the forums on Huck's Army, this caused them to ramp up their efforts to ensure that their man won, and that is the reason for this lopsided victory. I think that such tactics are reminiscent of the efforts of Ron Paul supporters in the primary to hijack polls, and just as Ron Paul's wins in polls were not considered valid expressions of support of the people, nor should this be considered a valid expression of support. Even though this is an unscientific poll, the result is completely unnatural. And due to the fact that Governor Palin was leading the poll at one point immediately before the effort to hijack the poll was mounted, I think a substantial case can be mounted that Governor Palin is in fact the legitimate winner of CQ Politics' VP Madness bracket. Now, I can't tell you who would have won had this poll not been hijacked, but neither can anyone say that Huckabee is really the legitimate winner here, and therefore I would say that CQ Politics really needs to report on what went on behind the scenes, especially since they acknowledge it themselves by listing both our movement and Huck's Army movement as pressure movements in this poll. And I would think that they should give Governor Palin equal coverage, as it is really impossible to determine the actual results of that final matchup. But what we can say is that the 72 to 28 margin is not an accurate representation at all. Now, whether you agree with me on that Governor Palin actually won this poll, it's a big step forward regardless. This proves that Governor Palin is a legitimate contender for the vice presidency in the eyes of the American people, just based on the fact that she advanced to the final round. And I would appeal to the media, Senator McCain, and Governor Palin herself to begin to recognize that a McCain ticket with Palin is in fact a realistic possibility, and perhaps the GOP's best chance for victory this November. I'd like to thank all who voted and made this a possibility so that we can sit here regardless of the result and declare victory tonight. Thanks for listening, and God bless America.